Pompeii is a huge archaeological site in southern Italy that was once a thriving and sophisticated Roman city. In 79 AD, Pompeii was buried under 25 feet of ash and pumice after the catastrophic eruption of Mount Vesuvius, a volcano that looms over the city, shown straight ahead. The city remained buried for 1,900 years. The preserved site features excavated ruins of streets and houses that visitors like us can freely explore. Pompeii is so important because it gives visitors an extraordinary insight into everyday life in ancient Rome, because many buildings were preserved. The city and its citizens remained exactly as they had that summer day in 79 AD, frozen in time under layers of ash for over 1,000 years. The lost city proved to be a dream come true for archaeologists, yielding a trove of intact artifacts that remain in near-perfect condition that had been undisturbed for centuries. The excavations at Pompeii provided a truly unique archaeological treasure: actual Romans. The bodies had been covered in layers of fine ash that calcified over the centuries, forming a type of protective shell around their bodies. When the skin and tissue of these bodies eventually decayed, they left voids in the layer of ash around them in the exact shape of the victims in their final moments. Plaster was poured in the voids. Once hardened, archaeologists chipped away the outer layers of ash, which left behind the cast of the volcano's victims at the time of their deaths. Many of the victims remained frozen in contorted positions. Some had been trying to shield their faces with their hands. One mother was found desperately trying to shield her child. The eerily preserved expressions of horror and pain are a powerful reminder that despite the thousands of years that separate us, the people who lived there were as human as we are. But humans weren't the only victims. Yes, this is a body cast of a dog. The area where these specific body casts are located is called the Mensa Ponderaria. It used to be a small fruit and vegetable market, but it is now used to store archaeological finds. In addition to the body cast, you can also see some pottery, a lot of pottery, that has been found. While my husband and I were exploring, we happened upon a room that contained a lot of replicas of the body casts. So these are not the originals, but they're replicas, so some of these may seem familiar to you. This is the basilica. The basilica was built in the 2nd century BC and was the most important building in all of Pompeii. It was the courthouse and the center of the economic life of the city. The Temple of Apollo was built in 120 BC and dedicated to the god Apollo. It's located in the Forum, which is their marketplace, and it is Pompeii's most important religious building. While we were visiting the Temple of Apollo, I made a little friend. This little guy climbed over my foot and scared me to death.
I'm gonna take him home with me. Nope, never mind.
That's Mount Vesuvius.
The Forum was the main square of the city. Cart traffic was prohibited there. It was the heart of political and religious life, surrounded by religious, civil, and commercial buildings. Pompeii's main street was Via Abbondanza. It was lined with shops, bars, and restaurants, and is a lively pedestrian zone jammed with customers from sun up till sundown. These 3 stones located where the street meets the Forum are traffic barriers to keep chariots from entering the pedestrian-only street. The Stabian Baths were the town's oldest bath complex and probably dates from the 2nd century BC. Public baths were affordable and very popular. They were also a place for all Roman people to socialize. The bathing consisted of a series of differently heated rooms, a gym section, and an outside garden to enjoy. Like all bath complexes, it was divided into 2 zones, one for men and one for women. A short corridor led to the dressing room with wooden lockers and seats. The first room was the frigidarium with a circular tub for cold bathing and an open roof for lighting. On the right side was a tepidarium, or warm room. This was a room with heated warm air that would prepare visitors for the shock of the hot room. The people's body was covered with oils. Finally, the caldarium, or hot bath, was heated by a wall cavity system with hot air generated by a furnace circulating inside. Visitors washed the oil off and bathed in a hot bath before heading back to the cold room to finish off. One section of the Stabian baths had this plaster cast of a young woman. You can see she died laying face down with her arm covering her face.
Was a young woman, okay? She tried to preserve nose and mouth. Like, because during the eruption in Pompeii, we had a big cloud of 500 degrees. Okay, it's not possible to move, okay?
This arch was part of Pompeii's water delivery system. A long aqueduct carried fresh water down from the hillsides to a big reservoir perched at the highest point of the city wall. Water from the main reservoir flowed downhill into the arch's tank, which in turn provided the neighborhood with reliable water pressure. The Thermopylaeum were basically Pompeii's version of McDonald's, where drinks and hot food were served on the go. Thermopylaea were very popular in Roman times. 89 of them have been found in Pompeii only. A Thermopylaeum consisted of a room opening to the road, having a stone countertop where the food was placed, and rooms at the back with seats for customers to eat
But
in.
if you have one of these, it's a little stale.
That will break my teeth.
The house of the tragic poet is home to a world-famous mosaic at the entrance of the villa. It reads Cave Canem, which is Latin for "Beware of the dog." The house of the wounded bear gets its name because of this beautiful mosaic at the entrance, which reads Ave, or Hail to you in Latin. This is how the owner welcomed his guests. The house has many other splendid mosaics on the walls and floors. The House of the Faun is the largest house in Pompeii and is one of the finest examples of a private house from ancient times. The name of the house comes from a beautiful bronze statue of a faun, a Roman divinity related to woods and nature. In the center of the building is a beautiful mosaic. Let's zoom in on one part of this mosaic. Does this look familiar to you? Because it should. It's in your textbook. The mosaic portrays Alexander the Great's victory over King Darius of Persia, perhaps suggesting a connection between Alexander and the unknown rich owner.
Shoot, I think there's bees. If you have a nice house in Pompeii, they like to enjoy some Red Bull.
No, that's actually a red Pegasus, is what they called it back in the day.
The House of the Dioscuri was named after the frescoes in the entrance featuring the Dioscuri, the twin sons of Zeus, Castor and Pollux. It is famous for its rich paintings, some of which are now housed in the National Archaeological Museum of Naples, including the one that gave it its name. This is known as the House of the Large Fountain, which makes sense because it has a large fountain. But in all seriousness, I think this fountain is absolutely beautiful. It is so detailed. The inside is coated with glass mosaics. Water gushed out from a dolphin-shaped bronze jet and flowed down a small flight of steps into the collecting basin below. And if you look at the two sides, you can see that there are two tragic marble masks to decorate it. This is the bakery or pistrinium. The millstones have square pockets in which wooden beams would have been placed and harnessed to mules in order to turn the stones and grind the grain for flour. The flour was collected and used to make bread. The arched brick oven could hold 80 loaves of bread. Loaves of bread were found in some of the ovens. The large theater built in the 2nd century BC could hold nearly 5,000 spectators. Close to the orchestra, 4 steps totally covered in marble were visible. They were reserved for the musicians and the city elite. Playworks performed in the theater probably included dramatic comedies and mimes with dance and music. All the stands were enclosed by a wall supporting an enormous retractable canopy, which protected the public from sun and bad weather. We are now making our way into the amphitheater. It is the oldest surviving Roman amphitheater, built in 70 BC. The various sections were intended for the various social classes. The seats in the lower central area were reserved for higher-ranking people, while those high up were for the plebeians. The amphitheaters were sometimes equipped with a large canopy which was stretched over the amphitheater in case of rain. It could hold between 12,000 to 20,000 spectators.
Okay.
It hosted all the circus shows and the gladiatorial games so dear to the Pompeians, who devoted most of their spare time to these performances.